The rain had stopped just an hour before Simone reached the gates. The long drive to the old Morgan estate was slick with silver puddles, reflecting the faint glow of lanterns that lined the cobblestone path. Her father always insisted on perfection even in the smallest details. The light had to be soft but not dim, warm but not inviting. Everything about Jerome Morgan was a performance. Simone's cab slowed as the iron gates swung open. The family crest gleamed on the wet metal, two doves entwined in silver. For a moment, Simone thought how ironic it looked now. Doves symbolized peace. Her family hadn't known peace in years. When the cab stopped at the front steps, the house loomed before her like a cathedral. Its gray stone walls glistened from the rain, ivy curling up to the second floor. From the outside, it looked like time itself had stopped frozen on the night her mother, Alana, had last smiled in public. A uniformed servant rushed forward with an umbrella. "Miss Simone, welcome home." The man's voice was cheerful, but his eyes darted nervously toward the front door. "Thank you, Henry," she replied softly, stepping out. Her heels clicked against the stone dot. As she looked up, she saw the faint glow of chandeliers through the arched windows. Laughter echoed from inside, the kind that never quite reached the heart. Simone straightened her coat and brushed a strand of wet hair from her cheek. She was home, after 5 years. The front door opened before she could knock. Her father stood in the doorway, a smile so polished it almost gleamed. "Simone, my darling girl." He stepped forward, arms open, the scent of his cologne rich, woody, and overpowering, wrapped around her like a net. "Dad," she said, managing a small smile as he hugged her. His embrace was firm, controlled, almost staged for whoever might be watching. When he pulled back, his eyes scanned her quickly, her clothes, her posture, her expression. It wasn't affection, it was assessment. "You've grown more beautiful," he said. "Your mother will be thrilled. She's been well, you'll see." Simone nodded, her eyes drifting past him into the grand foyer. Everything was the same. The marble floor polished to a mirror shine, the sweeping staircase draped with silver ribbons for the anniversary, the portraits her father's lineage staring down from the walls, eyes proud and cold. And then, at the top of the stairs, her mother appeared. Alana Morgan looked fragile, like porcelain that had been mended too many times. Her once dark hair had turned pale gold, pinned neatly at the back. She wore a silver gown that shimmered faintly under the chandelier. When she smiled, it was small, almost apologetic. "Simone," she said softly, "you're home." Simone climbed the stairs slowly, her heart tightening with every step. When she reached her mother, she hesitated before embracing her. Alana's arms trembled slightly as she held her daughter, and Simone felt the faintest flinch when Jerome's footsteps echoed behind them. "You look tired, Mom," Simone whispered. Alana's hand brushed her cheek gently. "It's just the preparations. You know how your father loves a grand event." "Yes," Simone said quietly. "I remember that evening." The house buzzed with quiet chaos. Servants moved through the halls like ghosts, polishing silver and arranging flowers. The scent of lilies filled the air, a smell Simone had always associated with both beauty and funerals. Dinner was a rehearsal for the grand anniversary celebration planned for the next night. Only close friends and family had been invited tonight. The Morgans never did small, but Jerome called it intimate. At the long dining table, Simone sat between her mother and her cousin Bree. Across from them sat her father, his glass of wine reflecting the golden light. "To 25 years of love and strength," he said, raising the glass. Everyone echoed the toast, though Alana's smile flickered. Simone watched her mother's hand tremble slightly as she lifted her drink. When their eyes met, Alana quickly looked away. "Simone," Jerome said suddenly, turning the spotlight toward her, "tell us about your work. You're still at the firm in the city." "Yes," she said, keeping her voice steady. "We just opened a new branch. It's busy." Her father nodded approvingly. "That's my girl, always chasing success." Simone gave a small smile, but her thoughts were elsewhere. The conversation flowed around her like a river, voices rising, laughter echoing, silverware clinking. Yet under it all, she felt something wrong, something brittle. She caught her mother glancing toward the far end of the table, toward the empty chair that had been set beside Jerome. "Who's that for?" Simone asked quietly. Her father's smile didn't falter. "A guest who couldn't make it tonight." But Alana's hand froze midair, and a shadow passed across her face. After dinner, Simone wandered through the hallways. The house seemed both familiar and foreign, like a place from a dream she couldn't quite recall. The paintings, the piano, even the faint ticking of the grandfather clock, Everything was as it had been, and yet colder. She paused by a closed door. It was her mother's studio once, filled with the scent of turpentine and soft music. Now it was silent. She turned the handle, locked. Footsteps echoed behind her. Still curious, came her father's voice. Simone turned. He was standing in the hallway, hands clasped behind his back, smile polite but sharp. "Just walking down memory lane," she said. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Some rooms are best left closed, my dear." Simone met his gaze. "Even for family." Jerome's smile deepened, but his eyes hardened, especially for family. He walked past her, his cologne lingering like smoke. Simone waited until his footsteps faded before resting her hand on the locked door again. Something inside that room whispered to her, not in words but in a feeling, a warning. Later that night, Simone couldn't sleep. She lay awake in her childhood room, the faint sound of rain returning against the window. The walls were lined with the same pale wallpaper, the same shelves filled with childhood books and trophies, but everything felt staged, like a museum exhibit of someone else's life. She sat up and looked toward the hall. A dim light glowed from under her parents' bedroom door across the landing. Voices murmured low, tense. Simone slipped from her bed, careful not to make a sound. She moved closer, pressing her ear against the cool wood. "Can't keep pretending," her mother's voice whispered, tight with fear. Jerome's reply was calm, almost amused. "We've been pretending for 25 years, Alana. Another day won't kill you." A pause, then Alana's trembling voice, "It's already killing me." Simone froze. The silence that followed felt endless. Then came a sharp sound, glass breaking. She stepped back quickly, heart pounding, as the door creaked open just an inch. A sliver of light fell across the floor. Through it, she saw her mother's shadow, and the faint outline of Jerome standing over her. Simone's breath caught, but before she could move, the light went out. The next morning, the house was bright again. Servants moved briskly, laughter echoed faintly, and silver decorations gleamed. Everything looked perfect. But Simone couldn't shake the feeling of last night at breakfast. Her mother appeared composed, makeup flawless, a silk scarf wrapped neatly around her neck, but Simone noticed the faint bruise just beneath it, half hidden by the fabric. Jerome was cheerful, almost radiant. "Today's the big day," he announced, pouring champagne into his glass. "Tonight, we celebrate a love that has endured everything." Simone's gaze flicked to her mother. Alana's hand tightened around her cup. "Mom," Simone said quietly, "are you okay?" Alana hesitated, then smiled too quickly. "Of course, darling, just tired." But when their eyes met again, Simone saw it clearly, fear, and beneath it, a plea. That afternoon, Simone found Brianna in the garden, trimming roses for the evening decorations. The younger woman looked uneasy, her usual chatter subdued. "Bri," Simone said softly, "what's been going on here?" Brianna's hand stilled. She looked toward the house before whispering, "You shouldn't ask." "Why not?" "Because people who ask questions around here don't get answers, they get silence." Simone frowned. Has my father hurt her?" Brianna swallowed. "All I'll say, your mother tried to leave once, years ago. After that, she never tried again." The pruning shears clicked sharply in her hand, and he made sure everyone believed she was unstable, that she needed him. Simone's stomach twisted. Brianna looked up, eyes filled with warning. "Be careful, Simone. He doesn't like losing control of his story." That evening, as the guests began to arrive for the silver anniversary celebration, the house came alive with music and light. Simone, dressed in a simple navy gown, elegant but understated, she stood by the staircase, watching the crowd. Politicians, businessmen, old family friends all gathered to celebrate the perfect marriage, and in the center of it all stood Jerome and Alana, hand in hand, their smiles radiant. To anyone else, they were the picture of devotion, but Simone saw the tension in her mother's posture, the way Jerome's hand tightened just slightly on her wrist. That as the music swelled, Jerome raised his glass. "To my beautiful wife," he declared, "my partner, my strengths, my muse." The guests applauded. Alana smiled weakly. But Simone's eyes locked on something behind her mother, something glinting near the fireplace mantel. A small, wrapped box, silver ribbon. It wasn't part of the decorations, and when she glanced at her mother, Alana's gaze flicked toward it just for a second, before looking away, eyes full of quiet terror. Simone didn't touch the box right away. She COULD and single quotes T. All through the evening, her mind danced between the music, the laughter, and the shimmer of that small package. Her father moved through the guests like a conductor, orchestrating every conversation, every smile. He had a way of turning gatherings into performances, and tonight he was directing his greatest play, The Perfect Marriage. But the moment he turned his back, Simone slipped quietly through the crowd toward the mantel. The box was no larger than a jewelry case, wrapped in delicate silver paper with a white ribbon. A small tag dangled from it, handwritten in her mother's looping script. "For you, when it's time." Simone's heart quickened. She slipped the box into her clutch, unnoticed, and retreated upstairs. The house was quieter now, the party sounds muffled by thick walls and distance. She entered her childhood room, locked the door, and sat at the edge of the bed. Her fingers trembled slightly as she untied the ribbon. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, lay a silver key. No note, no clue, just the key, cool and heavy in her palm. For a moment, she didn't move. Then her eyes lifted toward the far corner of her room, toward the hallway. Beyond her mother's studio. Simone waited until the music downstairs swelled again, the sound of a toast, of laughter, and then she crept out. The corridors were dim, lit only by the faint glow of wall lamps. The air carried a strange stillness, as if the house itself were holding its breath. When she reached the studio door, her pulse thudded in her ears. She slipped the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. The door clicked open. A faint scent of oil paint and lavender drifted out, a ghost of what used to be. She pushed the door gently and stepped inside. The room was dim, lit only by moonlight streaming through the tall windows. Dust motes hung in the air, swirling in silver light. Easels stood in the corners, draped with old sheets. A single painting rested on the stand in the center of the room, covered. Simone hesitated, then reached forward and pulled away the cloth. Her breath caught. It was a portrait, unfinished. Her mother's hand was visible in every soft stroke. It showed a woman's face, but not her mother's. Not exactly. The woman looked like Alana, but younger, sadder, a version of her that existed before Simone was born. The background was dark, the edges blurred, as if the woman were fading into shadow. And there, in the bottom corner, was something else. Words scratched faintly into the paint, almost hidden beneath the layers. "Help me remember who I was." Simone stepped back, her hand over her mouth. Behind her, the floor creaked. She turned sharply. A figure stood in the doorway. "Her mother?" "Mom," Simone whispered. "What is this?" Alana's face was pale, her eyes glistening. "You weren't supposed to see that yet." "Why? What's going on? Why did you give me the key?" Her mother's gaze flickered toward the hallway. "You have to leave tonight." Simone froze. "What?" Alana stepped closer, voice shaking. "He knows, he's always known. But tonight, something's different. He's losing control." "Mom, what are you talking about?" Alana's hands gripped Simone's shoulders. "There are things you don't remember. Things he made you forget. The woman in that painting." She broke off suddenly, eyes darting toward the door. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, approaching. Alana's fingers tightened. "Hide it. Hide the key. Don't let him know you've seen." Door opened before Simone could move. Jerome stood there, perfectly composed, a glass of wine in hand. "Ah," he said smoothly, "so this is where you disappeared too." His gaze flicked to the painting, still haunting old ghosts. "Alana." Her mother's lips parted, but no sound came. Simone stepped forward, trying to steady her voice. "She was showing me her work." Jerome smiled faintly, but there was steel in his eyes. "At this hour, it's her art, Dad. She doesn't need permission to look at it." For a moment, the air between them crackled. Then Jerome's smile returned. "Of course not. But it's late, and we have a big day ahead." He reached out and closed the door to the studio, locking it with a soft click from the outside. Simone heard his footsteps fade down the corridor. Her mother exhaled shakily, leaning against the wall. "Mom," Simone whispered. "What did he mean? Old ghosts?" Alana's eyes glistened. "He meant me." Simone didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, staring out at the rain. The key lay cold in her palm. Every instinct told her to leave, to pack her things and drive away. But something stronger kept her there. The need to know. At dawn, she found her mother in the conservatory, sitting among the lilies. Alana looked fragile in the gray light, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "Mom," Simone said softly, sitting beside her, "you said he made me forget something." Her mother turned, her eyes full of quiet sorrow. "You were very young. You saw things a child shouldn't see. I tried to protect you. But he," she stopped, voice breaking, "he needed you to believe in his version of the story." What story? Alana hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. That this house was a home, that we were happy, that he was a good man. Simone swallowed hard. And what's the truth? Her mother looked down at her trembling hands. The truth, she whispered, is that he took everything from me, even you. That evening, preparations for the anniversary continued. The house buzzed with activity, laughter, music, all of it layered over a tension that pulsed beneath the surface like a heartbeat. Simone stayed by her mother's side most of the day, watching the way Alana's smiles never quite reached her eyes. When the sun began to set, Simone went upstairs to dress. She paused by the window, watching guests arrive once more. Her father stood outside, greeting them, his charm polished to perfection. Then she saw it. A man in a gray suit she didn't recognize. He approached Jerome, said something quietly, handed him a small envelope. Jerome's expression shifted for just an instant, from confidence to fury. Then, it was gone. Simone stepped back from the window. Something was happening. The anniversary dinner was more extravagant than the night before. Strings played softly, candles flickered, and laughter filled the air. Jerome gave his speech again, this time longer, grander. He spoke of devotion, of sacrifice, of unbreakable bonds. And all the while, Alana sat beside him, her eyes distant. Then, just as the applause began, she stood. The room fell silent. 25 years, she said softly, her voice trembling but clear. A long time to keep pretending. Jerome's smile froze. Alana, but she didn't stop. You all see what he wants you to see. The perfect husband, the perfect life. But perfection is a mask, and masks crack. A murmur rippled through the guests. Simone's breath caught. Her mother's hand trembled as she reached for her scarf, and slowly pulled it away. The bruise beneath her neck was darker now, spreading like spilled ink. Gasps echoed around the table. Jerome rose swiftly, voice smooth but sharp. My wife isn't well. The stress. Don't, Alana whispered, stepping back. Don't touch me. The silence that followed was suffocating. Simone stood. Mom Jerome's gaze snapped toward her. Sit down, Simone. But she didn't. Her pulse thundered as she looked between them, her mother shaking, her father's mask slipping. The room felt smaller, colder. Then, from across the table, Alana met her daughter's eyes and said quietly, the box wasn't the only thing I left for you. Jerome's expression changed, panic flickering across his face. Alana, he hissed. Enough, but it was already too late, because in that moment, Simone remembered, a flash, a memory buried deep, her mother crying, a door slamming, a child's scream, and her father's voice, calm, measured, terrifyingly gentle. She's not herself, sweetheart. You didn't see what she did. Simone staggered back, her breath catching. It wasn't her mother who had broken. It was the truth. The guests began to whisper, confusion rippling through the crowd. Jerome turned, forcing a smile. I think that's enough excitement for one night. But Alana spoke again, her voice breaking. You told her I was sick, that I needed you. You made her forget what you did. Jerome's smile vanished completely. He reached for her wrist, not harshly, but with that quiet, terrifying control. Let's go upstairs, he murmured. Simone moved instinctively between them. No. Jerome's eyes met hers, cold, furious. For the first time in her life, she saw the real man behind the charm. This is a family matter, he said softly. Not anymore, Simone replied. The night ended in chaos. Guests left in uneasy silence, murmurs spreading through the halls. Jerome disappeared into his study, the door slamming shut. Alana sat by the fire, trembling. Simone knelt beside her, taking her hand. Mom, she whispered, we'll leave, tonight. I'll take you away. Her mother looked at her with tearful eyes. You can't save me, Simone. Yes, I can. Alana shook her head slowly. Not until you remember everything. Simone's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Her mother's gaze drifted toward the stairs, toward the locked door of the studio. That room holds the rest of the truth, she whispered, and he'll do anything to keep it there. That night, thunder rolled over the hills. The storm had returned, and as lightning flashed across the dark windows, Simone stood outside the studio door once more, the silver key trembling in her hand. She knew that whatever waited inside would change everything. Still, she turned the lock. The door creaked open. Inside, the darkness seemed to breathe, and as the wind howled through the house, Simone stepped inside, and the truth began to whisper back. The hinges groaned as Simone pushed the studio door wider. The smell of turpentine and rain-soaked dust rolled out to meet her. Moonlight streaked across the floorboards, revealing footprints in the powdery film small bear and recent dot. Her own breath fogged in the chill air. She whispered, "Mom." No answer, only the slow tick of the grandfather clock down the hall. Muffled through the walls, Simone stepped inside. The studio was exactly as she had left it, or so she thought. Then she noticed the easel had been turned toward the wall, and beneath it a rectangle of lighter wood showed where another canvas once stood. A faint trail of scuff marks led to the back door that opened into the garden. She followed them. The door creaked on its rusted hinges. Beyond it, the garden lay shrouded in mist, the fountain in the center overflowing from the night's rain. The roses her mother's pride had grown wild, twisting around the stone paths like grasping fingers. Simone hesitated on the threshold. Her mother's words echoed. That room holds the rest of the truth. But the trail didn't end in the room. It led outside. She stepped into the fog. At the far end of the garden stood an old greenhouse, half collapsed under ivy and time. Its glass panes were clouded, some cracked, some missing entirely. She remembered playing there as a child, her mother teaching her how to tend seedlings, how to speak softly to things that grew. Back then, her father rarely came here. He said the place smelled of decay. Now, as Simone approached, she saw a faint light flicker inside, candlelight. Her heart tightened. She pushed the warped door open. The scent hit her first, a strange blend of earth, wax, and something sweetly metallic. The candle sat on an overturned pot, its flame dancing, and beside it, half hidden beneath a tarp, was another painting. Simone pulled the tarp away gasped. The canvas showed the same woman from before, but this time the face was complete. The likeness was perfect. Alana younger, radiant, but there was something else in her eyes, something haunted. In the corner, the same scratched words appeared again, only this time clearer, carved into the paint itself. "Help me remember who I was." Beneath the frame, tucked between the planks, she found a small leather journal. Her mother's handwriting. She opened it carefully. The first pages were filled with sketches, flowers, portraits, bits of poetry, but further in, the tone changed. The handwriting trembled. The words rushed, desperate. "He keeps saying it's for my own good, that the treatments will make me better. But I remember what I saw. The fire, the child crying. Why won't he let me talk about it?" Simone's pulse pounded. She turned another page. "He says it was an accident, but I know. I remember the smell of smoke on his clothes." Then another. "If anything happens to me, the truth is in the garden." Simone froze. The truth is in the garden. She looked up. Around her, the plants swayed in the faint breeze, leaves rustling like whispers. And then footsteps. Behind her. She spun around. A shadow moved outside the greenhouse. "Mom," she called again, voice trembling. The shadow paused, then vanished. Her chest tightened. She blew out the candle, plunging the greenhouse into darkness. The fog outside glowed faintly in the moonlight, making the world look pale and unreal. She slipped the journal into her coat and crept back toward the house. When she reached the terrace, she saw lights still on in the study. Her father's silhouette moved behind the curtains, sharp and deliberate. He was on the phone. She couldn't hear the words, but his tone was icy, controlled. Then, suddenly, he turned toward the window. Simone ducked behind the stone railing, heart hammering. After a moment, the curtain swayed closed again. She didn't move until the light went out. Inside, the house was silent. Even the grandfather clock seemed to hold its breath. Simone climbed the stairs carefully, her shoes in her hand. At her door, she stopped. There was something on the floor, a folded note, slid under the crack. She crouched, picked it up, unfolded it. 2 words, written in her mother's shaky hand, "He knows." Simone's throat went dry. She glanced toward her mother's room. Door closed. She slipped inside quietly. Alana was gone. The bed was unmade. The window open. Curtains fluttered in the cold night air. On the dresser lay a single rose, its stem wrapped in silver thread. Simone stared at it, her pulse thudding in her ears. Then she saw the faint mud prints on the floor leading out the window and toward the garden. "Mom!" She grabbed her coat and ran. Rain began to fall again, soft but steady. Her breath came in bursts as she crossed the lawn toward the greenhouse. Lightning flashed, and in that instant, she saw her mother standing by the fountain, drenched, her white gown clinging to her frame. "Mom!" Alana turned slowly. Her eyes were distant, unfocused. "It's all here," she whispered. "Everything he tried to bury." Simone reached her. "You can tell me. We'll go to the police." "No," Alana said. shaking her head. They won't believe me. They never did. Then we'll live right now. Her mother looked past her, toward the house. He won't let us. Not again. Thunder cracked. And from the terrace, a door slammed open. Jerome's voice cut through the storm. Alana, Simone. The sound of his shoes on the stone steps was slow, deliberate, terrifying. Alana's grip tightened around Simone's hand. Go, she whispered urgently. Go to the greenhouse. There's a trapdoor under the old bench. Take the book. Don't come back until you've read it all. Mom, I'm not leaving you. Alana smiled sadly. You already left me once. Then she shoved Simone toward the greenhouse. Simone stumbled through the doorway, turning just in time to see her father reach her mother by the fountain. Their figures blurred in the rain. She couldn't hear their words, only the sharp rise of his voice, the pleading tone of hers, then the flash of Mosh and Jerome's hand grabbing Alana's arm. A struggle, a scream, and silence. Simone froze, the journal clutched to her chest. Lightning flashed again. Her mother lay motionless by the fountain. Jerome stood over her, face pale, eyes hollow. Then, slowly, he turned toward the greenhouse. Their eyes met through the rain. Simone ran. She tore through the rows of wilted plants, stumbled to the old bench, and yanked it aside. Beneath, half buried under soil, was a wooden hatch. She wrenched it open. A ladder descended into darkness. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then climbed down, pulling the hatch closed above her. The air below was damp and cold. Her flashlight cut a narrow path through the dark. The cellar stretched farther than she expected. Stone walls lined with boxes, old trunks, and paintings turned to the wall. On one of them, the name Alana Rivers, 1989, was scrawled in chalk. Simone lifted her light. The canvas showed a child's room, engulfed in flames, a man's shadow in the doorway, and in the corner, a little girl crying. Simone staggered back, heart pounding. Memories crashed over her. Smoke heat, her mother screaming her name, Jerome pulling her away, saying it was all her mother's doing, that she had lost control. But it wasn't true. He had started the fire. He had told her a story, so many times that she had believed it. Tears blurred her vision. She sank to the floor, clutching the journal. Then she heard the creak of the hatch above. Light spilt down the ladder. Her father's voice, calm and measured. Simone, you shouldn't be here. Simone froze where she knelt. The flashlight trembled in her hand, the beam jittering across the rough stone walls. Her father's silhouette loomed at the top of the ladder, a tall, composed figure framed in the faint glow from above. Rain dripped down his coat, catching light like silver threads. Simone, he said softly, as if coaxing a frightened child. Come up, you shouldn't be here. His tone was calm, but beneath the smoothness lay something sharp, too measured, too even. Simone clutched the journal to her chest. You hurt her. Jerome descended the ladder slowly, one deliberate step at a time. Your mother's unstable. You saw that yourself. She don't, Simone whispered, her voice trembling but firm. Don't lie again. He reached the ground and straightened, towering above her. Lie, my dear, you've been fed lies your entire life from her. He gestured around the cellar. Look at this madness. Paintings of death, cryptic notes, journals filled with delusions. You think this is truth? You think this is sanity? Simone shook her head, tears mixing with dirt on her cheeks. She was trying to remember. You made her forget. Jerome's jaw tightened. I saved her, from herself, from what she did. She didn't do anything. Simone shouted. You started that fire. His expression faltered, just slightly. You remember that? Simone's breath hitched. I remember the smell. I remember you pulling me out, telling me not to look back. You said she was dangerous, but she wasn't. She was trying to protect me from you. Jerome took a step closer, his shadow swallowing her light. You were 5 years old. You don't know what you saw. I do now. Her voice broke, but the conviction in it burned through the fear. Jerome studied her for a long, silent moment. Then he sighed softly, almost pitying. I always knew you'd dig too deep. You're too much like her. He moved suddenly, faster than she expected, grabbing for the journal. Simone stumbled back, clutching it tighter. Give it to me, he said, his voice low, dangerous. You don't understand the damage this could do. Simone raised the flashlight, its beam trembling across his face. For the first time, she saw it, clearly. Not the mask, not the charming facade, but the exhaustion, the fury, the rot beneath perfection. I understand perfectly, she whispered. You built your life on a lie. He lunged. They struggled, hands grappling for the journal. the flashlight clattering to the floor. Its beam spun wildly across the walls, illuminating flashes of paintings, the burning nursery, the faceless woman, the words, "Help me remember," scrawled again and again. Jerome's hand struck her shoulder, hard. She fell back against a crate. The breath knocked from her lungs. The journal slid across the floor. He reached for it, then stopped, because a voice, faint but distinct, echoed down from above. "Jerome." It was Alana. Simone's eyes widened. She scrambled to her feet, pain flaring in her side. Jerome's head tilted toward the hatch, disbelief flickering across his face. "That's impossible, Mom," Simone shouted upward. "I'm here." Jerome seized her wrist. "Don't." His grip was steel. "You're confused. She's gone." But then another sound, footsteps, soft and uneven, and the creak of the ladder. Jerome's face drained of color. Alana descended slowly into view. Her gown was soaked, her hair tangled, her skin ghost pale, but her eyes were clear, fierce, alive. For a heartbeat, none of them spoke. Then she said quietly, "Let her go." "Jerome." He stared at her as though she were a phantom. "You should be dead." "Maybe I was," she said, voice trembling but steady. For a long time, Simone wrenched her wrist free and stumbled to her mother's side. "Mom, we have to leave." Alana's eyes never left Jerome. "Not yet. He needs to see what he's done." Jerome laughed softly, bitterly. "What I've done. I gave you everything. The house, the name, the protection. And this is how you repay me. With madness and betrayal. You burned that nursery," Alana said. "You killed her." Simone's breath caught. "Killed who?" Jerome's jaw clenched. "She doesn't need to know." "She deserves the truth," Alana whispered. "You owe her that much." Silence fell. The rain above softened to a faint patter, as if the world itself were listening. Finally, Jerome spoke, voice low. "Her name was Lily." Simone frowned. "Lily." Alana's eyes filled with tears. "Your sister." Simone's knees buckled. What? Jerome's gaze was fixed on the ground. "You were too young. We never told you it was an accident." "No," Alana said. "You made it look like one. She found your ledgers, Jerome. She knew about the money, the experiments, the patients. She was going to tell." Simone stared at them both, her world shattering. "Experiments?" Her mother nodded faintly. "He wasn't just a doctor. He tested things on people no one would miss. He called it research. I called it what it was." Jerome's face darkened. "Enough." But Alana kept going. "Lily tried to expose him. He locked her in that room. When the fire started, I couldn't reach her. He held me back, said it was too late." Simone pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "You told me it was her fault. You said she said it herself." Jerome's voice cracked with anger. "You think I wanted this? Everything I did was to protect our family." Alana's whisper sliced through the dark. "You destroyed it." He lunged again, but this time Simone was ready. She swung the flashlight, striking his arm. He stumbled, cursing, and she grabbed her mother's hand. They ran, up the ladder, through the hatch, out into the storm. The rain felt colder now, sharper. Lightning split the sky as they raced across the garden, toward the car. Behind them, Jerome's voice rose, a ragged shout swallowed by thunder. "Simone, you don't know what you're doing." But she did. For the first time in her life, she did. They reached the car. Simone fumbled with the keys, hands shaking, heart pounding. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. Alana turned, staring back at the house through the rain. "It's ending tonight," she whispered. Simone's foot pressed on the gas. "It's over." But as the car lurched forward, a sudden flash of movement in the rearview mirror. Jerome, running, his coat billowing like a shadow dot, then dash, bang, dot. The windshield cracked, spiderwebbing from the impact of a thrown object, a stone, or maybe something heavier. Simone swerved, tires skidding on the wet gravel. Alana screamed. She didn't stop until the house was a shrinking shape in the distance, swallowed by the storm. Hours later, they sat in a small roadside diner, drenched and trembling. A neon sign buzzed weakly above them. Alana sipped a cup of coffee with shaking hands. Simone watched her, unsure whether to speak. "Mom," she said softly. "What now?" Alana looked out the window. The rain had eased to a steady drizzle. "We go somewhere he can't reach us. And you finish what I couldn't." Simone frowned. "What do you mean?" Alana slid the journal across the table. "There are names in there. People he hurt. Files he kept hidden. If you find them, you can stop him." Simone hesitated. "But won't he?" "He'll come after us," Alana said quietly. "He always does." For a long time, neither spoke. The waitress refilled their cups and left without a word. Finally, Simone opened the journal again. At the very end, scrawled in faded ink, were her mother's final words before the fire. If you're reading this, remember, truth grows in the dark, but it always reaches for the light. Simone closed the book slowly. Then we start there. Alana smiled faintly, weary but proud. You're stronger than I ever was. No, Simone said. I just finally remember who we were. Outside, dawn broke through the thinning clouds. Pale and uncertain dot in the distance. Thunder rumbled one last time, soft, fading dot, and in the reflection of the diner window, Simone thought she saw, just for a heartbeat, the shadow of a little girl watching over them smiling. The house of echoes half won the road stretched out like a ribbon of ash beneath a bruised sky. Simone drove without speaking, the wipers beating a steady rhythm across the windshield. Alana sat beside her, pale and silent, the journal clutched in her lap. Neither of them had slept. Each mile carried the weight of things unsaid, the names in the book, the sister lost to fire, the man they had left behind. Finally, Alana broke the silence. Where are we going? Simone's eyes stayed on the road, to the coast. I know someone there, Evelyn. She worked with Dad years ago. If anyone can confirm what's in the journal, it's her. Her mother nodded faintly. Evelyn Hart. She said the name like a memory she wished she could forget. You know her. Alana's fingers tightened around the book. She wasn't just his colleague. She was his partner. The experiments they began with her. Simone's stomach twisted. And you didn't tell me because she vanished, Alana whispered. After Lily died, Jerome said she couldn't live with her guilt. I believed him. Until now. By nightfall, they reached a weather-worn town pressed against the gray sea. The wind carried salt and the scent of rot from the docks. A flickering neon sign marked a small inn, the Mariner's Rest. Inside, the clerk, a young man with tired eyes, didn't ask questions. He handed over a key and wished them quiet dreams. Their room overlooked the ocean. The window rattled in the wind. Waves crashed against the rocks below. Simone spread the journal across the bed. Its final pages contained sketches of a coastal building, a research clinic, half medical, half industrial. On the last page, a single address, Elysium Institute, Cresthaven Bay. Alana stared at it. That's where it started. They found it the next morning. The building sat at the edge of the cliff's whitewashed walls, stained with rust, windows boarded, the gate padlocked. The sea roared far below. Simone squeezed through a broken fence, her boots crunching on gravel. The air smelled of salt and formaldehyde. Inside, the halls were lined with peeling paint and broken glass. Dust lay thick on everything except for a narrow path of fresh footprints leading deeper inside. Simone's pulse quickened. Someone's here. Alana's voice trembled. Evelyn. They followed the prints to a door marked Laboratory 3. It was ajar. Inside, a single lamp burned over a metal desk. Papers were scattered everywhere. Old records, photographs, medical charts. A woman stood with her back to them, her gray hair in a tight bun. Evelyn Hart, Simone asked softly. The woman turned. Her face was thin, lined by years, but her eyes were sharp. You look like her, she said quietly. Like Alana. Alana stepped forward. It's been a long time. Evelyn's expression flickered between relief and fear. You shouldn't have come. Jerome's still alive, Alana said. I know. Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. He never stopped. Simone's heart pounded. We have his journal. Proof of everything. Evelyn shook her head. Proof means nothing without witnesses, and most of them are dead. Then help us, Simone pleaded. Please. Evelyn hesitated. Then she turned to the desk and pulled a small tape recorder from the drawer. He used to record every session, every subject. One kept one. She pressed play. Static filled the air. Then Jerome's voice calm. Clinical. Patient A13. Female. Adolescent. Subject exhibits heightened response to sensory isolation. Duration 2 hours. Then another voice, a child's. Trembling, please. I want to go home. Simone's breath caught. That's Lily. Evelyn nodded. He called it conditioning. Said he was studying trauma and memory. Alana covered her mouth, tears spilling. He tortured her. Evelyn's gaze hardened, and when she threatened to tell the police, he burned the evidence, including her. Simone felt the room tilt. He said it was an accident. He said a lot of things. Suddenly, the lamp flickered. Evelyn's head snapped toward the doorway. You didn't drive here alone, did you? Simone's pulse spiked. What do you mean? A sound echoed down the hall, the slow, deliberate creak of a boot on tile. Evelyn grabbed their arms. There's a back exit through the storage wing. Go now. But what about you? Alana asked. I'll hold him off. Before they could argue, the door burst inward. Jerome stood there, soaked from the rain, eyes blazing. "Hello, ladies." He looked almost serene, the fury beneath his calm terrifying in its restraint. "Evelyn," he said softly, "you always did meddle." "Someone had to," she replied. Simone stepped in front of her mother, her voice shaking but defiant. "It's over, Dad." He smiled faintly. "No, sweetheart, it's just beginning." He pulled something from his coat, a small vial of clear liquid. "Do you know what this is? The same serum that made your sister forget." Simone froze. He turned it slowly in his fingers, the light catching the glass. "One dose, and all this pain disappears. No guilt, no nightmares, just peace," Alana whispered. "You're insane." "I'm merciful," he corrected, "and you both of you will thank me." He advanced. Evelyn moved to block him, but Jerome shoved her aside. The vial shattered on the floor, its contents spreading in a slick shimmer. The smell hit them, a chemical sweetness that burned the throat. Simone coughed, eyes watering. Her vision swam. Alana grabbed her hand. "Run." They fled through the corridor, half blind, the air thick with fumes. Behind them, Jerome's footsteps echoed steadily, unhurried. "Simone," he called. "You can't outrun memory." They burst into the storage wing, a cavernous room lined with filing cabinets and broken machinery. Rain leaked through holes in the roof. Simone stumbled, nearly falling. Alana caught her arm. "There." Alana pointed a door at the far end. They ran just as they reached it. A hand clamped around Simone's wrist. "Jerome, stop fighting me," he hissed. "You're sick, just like her." Simone twisted free. "Maybe, but at least I know the difference between love and control." She shoved him back hard. He slipped on the wet floor, hitting the ground with a crack. Alana pulled Simone through the exit into the storm. Behind them, the building's alarms began to wail. They didn't stop running until the cliffs opened before them, and the roar of the sea swallowed everything else. Alana collapsed to her knees, gasping. Simone knelt beside her, holding her close. "We have to finish this," Simone whispered. Alana nodded weakly. "Burn it." Simone turned back toward the institute, where light flickered through broken windows. The chemicals, the paper, the years of secret would all ignite easily. She hesitated only a moment, then struck a match from Evelyn's old lighter. The flame caught the wind, bending, struggling, then leapt to life. She tossed it through the doorway. The fire spread fast, feeding on decades of buried guilt. Inside, a shadow moved, Jerome staggering to his feet, framed in the orange glow. For a heartbeat, their eyes met through the flames. Then the ceiling gave way. The House of Echoes morning came gray and salt-soaked. The fire had devoured the Elysium Institute down to its bones, blackened steel and smoking. Rubble perched above the restless sea. Simone sat on the cliff edge, wrapped in a blanket a rescue worker had draped around her shoulders. Her hair smelled of smoke and rain. Alana sat a few feet away, her hands trembling as she clutched a mug of water that had long since gone cold. They hadn't spoken since the sirens. Below, fire crews moved like ghosts through the wreckage. One called up that they'd found no body yet. Another said the tide had taken what was left. Simone stared at the horizon. "Do you think he's gone?" Alana's answer came like wind through reeds. "Even if he is, he'll never really be gone." Simone nodded. Somewhere inside, she knew her mother was right. By noon, the authorities had their questions. There were statements to sign, an investigation to begin, reporters circling like gulls, but Simone kept her answers simple: smoke, accident, storm. She left the rest unsaid. When it was over, a detective approached quietly. "Ma'am, this was found near the North Cliffs." He held out a small waterproof case. Inside, charred, but intact, lay the tape recorder Evelyn had used. Simone's breath caught. "Evelyn?" The detective shook his head. No sign of her either. That night, in a rented room above a shuttered cafe, Simone sat at a narrow desk. She pressed play. Static whispered. Then Evelyn's voice. "If you're hearing this, it means the truth survived. Don't let his legacy define you. Simone, you and your mother are more than what he made of us." Then silence. Simone let the tape run to its hissed end. She felt something ease in her chest, a thread, loosening. Years of guilt. UNCOILING. Days passed. The sea slowly erased the black scar of the institute. Tourists would one day walk there without knowing what the cliffs had witnessed. Simone and Alana stayed in town while the inquiries folded and faded. The locals were kind in that gentle, distant way people are when they sense tragedy, but don't ask its shape. They spoke little of Jerome. Some nights Alana woke crying, calling Lily's name. Simone would sit beside her until dawn, whispering that it was over. But it wasn't really over. Not yet. A week later, the mail arrived. Among the letters was an envelope with no return address. Inside lay a photograph, old, faded, water-spotted dot. It showed the four of them, Jerome, Alana, Lily, and Simone, standing before the house years ago. On the back, in Lily's handwriting, "Remember me happy." Tears blurred Simone's vision. She passed the photo to her mother. Alana traced the words with shaking fingers. "She was trying to tell us, before everything." Simone nodded. "And now she finally can." That evening, they drove back inland, following the winding road toward home. The countryside glowed gold under a setting sun, washed clean after the storms. When they reached the house, the air felt different, lighter somehow, as if the walls had been waiting for them to breathe again. Inside, dust motes floated in the light. The piano stood open, untouched since the night of the anniversary. Simone sat at the keys. She pressed one softly. The note hung fragile and pure. Alana joined her, her voice a whisper. "What will you do now?" Simone thought for a long time. "Tell the truth," she said finally. "All of it." Alana smiled faintly, tired but proud. "Then, I'll help you." Weeks turned into months. Simone wrote, pages filled with the stories she had once feared to speak, the experiments, the lies, the fire, and the love that survived it all. She called it the House of Echoes. Publishers said it was too personal, too dark, but she didn't write for them. She wrote for the child her sister once was, for the mother who had endured, and for herself, the woman who had finally looked into the shadows and not turned away. Alana began painting again. Her canvases no longer hid faces in the background. They shone with light and sea and open skies. Sometimes they'd sit together on the porch at dusk. The world seemed smaller now, but safer. One evening, as gulls wheeled over the cliffs, a knock came at the door. Simone opened it and froze. Evelyn stood there, frail eyes rimmed red from travel and wind. "I had to see you," she said simply, "to tell you he's gone. The tide took him." Simone let out a shaky breath. "Thank you." Evelyn smiled, tired but genuine. "You ended the cycle. That's what matters." They spoke little more. Before leaving, Evelyn placed something in Simone's hand, a small silver pendant, tarnished but whole. "Lily's," she said. "She wanted you to have it." When the car disappeared down the road, Simone closed her fingers around the pendant. It felt warm, alive. That night, she dreamed of the sea. Lily stood on the shore, laughing, her hair bright against the wind. No fire, no fear, just peace. Simone woke with tears on her face and the faint scent of salt in the air. She rose quietly, walked to the piano, and played the song her sister used to love. The melody drifted through the sleeping house, wrapping the night in forgiveness. Epilogue. Years later, people in town would whisper about the family, on the hill, the painter and her daughter, the ones who lived quietly, kindly, always leaving a light burning in the window on stormy nights. Some said it was for sailors lost at sea. Others said it was for the dead. But Simone knew the truth. It was for remembrance, for the echoes that had finally learned to rest. And when the wind rose, carrying the scent of rain and distant waves, she would sometimes hear a child's laughter in it, soft, clear, and free. She would smile, whisper "thank you," and let the sound fade into the sea.